2008, a man who used to talk about cars for a living buys about 1,000 acres of Cotswolds farmland. Curdle Hill Farm, it was called then. Nothing about it screams empire. For over a decade, a local villager works the land on contract, quietly, the way farms have worked for generations around there. Then in 2019, that villager retires, and Clarkson takes it over himself. That's the moment the story actually starts. Not the purchase. The handover. He renames it Diddly Squat. A joke, basically, slang for the least amount, or nothing at all. Fitting, as it turns out, because the first year of real farming under his management reportedly nets a profit of £144. That figure gets repeated everywhere, though nobody's ever pointed to the actual filing behind it, which is worth holding loosely. Planning permission comes through that same year for a lambing shed, a farm shop, and 10 parking spaces. Small stuff. Routine stuff. The kind of paperwork that barely raises an eyebrow at the council. Nobody at West Oxfordshire District Council seems particularly bothered by it at the time. Then the shop opens in 2020, inside a converted barn, and things stop being small. Clarkson announces it partly through a tweet to his followers rather than any conventional ad campaign. The result is traffic chaos on country lanes that were never built for it. And this is where the tension that runs through the whole next decade starts to take shape, a working farm, in a protected area of outstanding natural beauty, suddenly functioning like a tourist attraction. Those two things were never going to sit comfortably together. By 2022, the farm's assets have reportedly grown to £1.34 million, with capital and reserves over £200,000. Whatever you think of the £144 starting point, something is clearly working. But the council starts pushing back. August 2022, an enforcement notice lands, ordering the farm to stop using the lambing shed as a restaurant and to cease other activity that was never approved. It's a real fight, not a formality. Solicitors get involved, and it drags into the following year. June 2023, planning inspector rules. The verdict is split. The restaurant in the lowland barn is refused outright and has to be restored. The café in the lambing shed gets to stay. Extra parking is granted, but only temporarily. It's the kind of decision that resolves nothing, really, it just draws the next set of lines the farm has to operate inside. And notably, the inspector's own decision letter describes Diddly Squat as having become a destination for visitors from all over the world. Which is either a compliment or a warning, depending on which side of the council table you're sitting on. Somewhere in this stretch, the beer starts to matter more than anyone probably expected. Hawkstone had existed since 2005, originally under a different name, focused on lager. Clarkson and entrepreneur Johnny Hornby buy into it in 2021, and the brewery starts using barley grown right there on the farm. It's a nice, tidy loop: grow the grain, brew the beer, sell it in the shop that's already drawing crowds. When it launches more widely, Hawkstone briefly becomes the top-selling beer on Amazon. Not bad for something the ad agency wouldn't even let them call Lager McLagerface. By 2024, Waitrose becomes the first supermarket to stock it. That's the kind of shelf space that doesn't happen to hobby projects. And then Clarkson does something that, on paper, looks like doubling down rather than consolidating. In August 2024, he opens a pub. The Farmer's Dog, in Burford. Around £1 million goes into it. This is where you'd expect the story to just keep climbing. It doesn't, not cleanly. Here's the thing that's easy to miss if you're only following the headlines about record beer sales and sold-out car parks. A business can be fully booked and still be losing money, and those two facts don't cancel each other out, no matter how good they look side by side on a press release. The Farmer's Dog is reportedly full, night after night. And in its first 4 months, it posts a pre-tax loss of £8,486. Small number, in absolute terms. But it's a real signal about how thin the margins are on a venture like this, dressed in all British produce branding that apparently excludes things as basic as ketchup and black pepper because of where they are made. The running costs, once you start pulling them apart, are relentless. A generator, because the site doesn't have enough electrical supply, burning through roughly £100 a day, with a permanent grid upgrade estimated at £200,000 just sitting there as a future bill. Heating for the terrace running close to £400 a week. Around 400 pint glasses vanishing every week, stolen, presumably, by customers who've had a few too many souvenirs. And parking. Parking attendants and traffic marshals, brought in to keep the council satisfied after everything that happened with the farm shop years earlier. One account puts that cost at £47,000 a month. Clarkson's own column puts it closer to £27,000. Nobody's reconciled those two numbers, and it's not clear if the gap is a mistake, a change over time, or two different things being measured. Either way, it's an eye-watering line item for something as mundane as keeping cars off a country lane. Then, in September 2025, Clarkson writes that the pub was hacked and the business swindled out of £27,000. No police confirmation, no independent verification, just his own account of it. Running a pub, he says, is harder than eating in one. Meanwhile, Hawkstone keeps climbing in a way that almost feels like it's happening in a different business entirely. Sales go from £7.8 million to £21.3 million in the year to March 2025. Equity jumps from around £430,000 to over £3 million. It lands 23rd on the Sunday Times list of Britain's fastest-growing private companies. It's now in over 2,000 pubs, up from 500 just the year before, and sitting on shelves in Waitrose, Morrison's, Sainsbury's, Ocado, Majestic. 3 of its ads even get banned by the Advertising Standards Authority, which, depending how you look at it, might be the closest thing to a marketing win this brand's had. So by late 2025, you've got one arm of this operation, the beer, accelerating hard, and another arm, the pub, bleeding cash on generators and stolen glassware. And then something quiet happens that nobody's really explained. Diddley Squat Farm Shop Limited gets dissolved in August 2025. Diddley Squat Farm Limited follows in December. 2 companies' house entities, gone within 4 months of each other. No public statement walks through why. Maybe it's a routine restructure. Maybe it's something else. It's the kind of detail that would be a major story on its own, if it weren't buried under everything else going on. Clarkson, for his part, has said he won't start another business as long as I live. Which is a striking thing to say from a man who's now behind a farm, a shop, a brewery, and a pub. 2026 opens with the show renewed for a 6th series, Series 5 landing on screens in June. That same month, Diddley Squat hosts the cereals event, pulling in over 25,000 visitors from across the farming industry, genuinely the kind of number that would have been unthinkable back when a local villager was quietly working this land on contract. Clarkson calls it an honor. And Hawkstone, by this point, is being described in at least one account as the most followed beer brand on Instagram anywhere in the world, a claim nobody else has independently backed up, but one that fits the general shape of what's happened here regardless. So where does that actually leave the number that matters most, what the whole operation is worth right now? One estimate puts the farm itself at around £12.5 million. It's explicitly labelled an estimate, not a valuation from anyone qualified to give one, and there's no public figure at all for what the shop brings in on its own, separate from the farm or the beer. Which is the real question sitting underneath all of this, when one part of your empire is setting sales records and another part can't cover its own parking bill, and you don't actually know what the flagship shop itself is pulling in. Is this a fortune, or just a very well-filmed way of breaking even? That's Diddley Squat for you. Worth exactly what you think it's worth, until someone finally opens the books.